The Toronto Maple Leafs had a great start to their season. They finally found goaltending and defensive depth to bolster the existing core of star players. At the halfway point of the season, the Leafs had clinched top spot in the Atlantic Division and they were also top 5 in the NHL. Every year, Leafs fans are convinced that this is the year, but it really did seem that the team had a level of depth and chemistry which had the potential to take them far. But lately, it seems Toronto have run into some problems. At the time that I'm recording this, they are on a 3-game losing streak. Fans are booing the team at Scotiabank Arena, and it seems like the Leafs have truly lost their momentum. But is this a problem that will impact them long term? Are there deeper issues at play? And what does the Leafs' recent form tell us about the Leafs' potential this upcoming postseason? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and happy 2025! I'm Victoria and I talk all things hockey and Toronto Maple Leafs from across the pond in Scotland. Welcome to the 2025 content. I took a couple weeks to get kind of going on hockey videos this year. I've been planning out a lot of stuff and kind of changing up some of the videos that I'll be making, but I'm really excited about the things I have planned. Rather than the weekly analysis videos that I've been doing, I've decided to do more in-depth research-based content on both the Leafs and on hockey overall, so I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Speaking of, make sure to like this video if you do enjoy it and also subscribe to my channel. 80% of people who watch my videos are not actually subscribed to my channel, so please do subscribe and also hit the notification bell to see every upload that I post. As always, leave your thoughts down below. I love to hear your takes on the Leafs and on hockey in general. And let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and whether or not they have ongoing problems. So let's start off with the goaltending, because the goaltending is definitely something that has been a talking point of the Leafs season so far. The Leafs of course started off the season really strong. They had a great tandem comprised of Joseph Woll and Anthony Stollarz. It's rare for the Leafs to have found this kind of goalie depth. They have had ongoing goalie problems for years now, all the way from Freddie Anderson to Matt Murray to everything in between. Stollarz has single-handedly won some games for the Leafs this season, and it is undeniable that the Leafs goaltending has been one of the highlights of the team so far. Of course, unfortunately on December 12th against the Anaheim Ducks, Anthony Stollarz sustained a knee injury which he has been out for over a month now with. He has had a procedure done on it, so hopefully he'll be back soon, he'll be fighting fit. I did see a report from Darren Dreger who said that he is likely to be back playing either at the end of January or the start of February. And I'd like to just say that I don't think the Leafs' recent problems at all are down to Joseph Woll. I think Joseph Woll is a really good goaltender. I think sometimes he has inconsistencies and he definitely has a problem when it comes to endurance and playing lots of games, but I still think he is a fantastic goalie. He is 14-8 in his 22 games played for the Leafs so far this season. He has an above 900 save percentage. He is definitely not the problem at all. Of course, due to the fact that Joseph Woll would be unable to play every single game, the Leafs have had to entrust Dennis Hildeby a few times with the start. And Dennis Hildeby, or the Hildebeest, you know, depending on which one shows up on the day, he's actually 5-2 right now, which is a really impressive record for a third string goalie. Matt Murray has also played a couple games. He's played 2 and he won 1 and he lost the other. Of course, Matt Murray is not a goaltender that anyone is expecting to be reliant on anymore. He is obviously a veteran and of course he's had a great career behind him, but he's definitely not, you know, going to be part of a starting tandem anymore, and that was never the plan for him this season. I do however think part of the problem is that they miss having Stollarz. I think although Woll is obviously fantastic, having the tandem of the two of them was truly what made a lot of games click, because you knew that you were getting such consistent goaltending between the two of them. I also think the team looked really confident in front of Stollarz, and so I think not having that is a real loss. Up until his injury, Stollarz was 9-5-2, so again, a very good record. All the Leafs goalies have got great records this season, and Anthony Stollarz definitely single-handedly won some games for the Leafs, and so they're definitely missing that other goaltender, because as much as Hildeby is good, he is a third string goalie and Woll can't do it all by himself. I don't think the goaltending is a problem, if I'm honest. I think Stollarz will be back soon, and as long as he's able to recover well, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I just think it's one unfortunate element which might have played into the Leafs being not quite as hot lately. An area which I think has been a bigger issue is definitely the Leafs' special teams. It was a real factor, especially earlier on in the season. I feel like in a lot of analysis videos I was just constantly talking about the poor special teams that the Leafs have at play this year. They had an inconsistent penalty kill and a power play which honestly at one point was not even functional. The Leafs have struggled to score on the man advantage this year. Of course, it was hoped that the Leafs' long-standing power play issues would be helped by a change in power play coach. Of course, it is Mark Savard now. I mean, how many power play coaches do we go through before we maybe admit that there's a problem at play that's not to do with the coach? As I'm filming this, the Leafs are actually 18th in the NHL in terms of power play percentage. It's 20.3, which is very low for a team that should be a cup contender, should be thinking about the postseason, and it's something that they need to work out before we reach the postseason, otherwise they're going to run into problems. Their penalty kill has definitely got better. They're actually 8th best in the league now, 82.5% efficiency, which is fantastic. It's really the power play that's a problem here. It also looked so much better when Austin Matthews was out injured, and it's not because Matthews is any detriment to the power play, it's the fact that there was no longer the reliance on passing to him to try and get a goal in. It was just that the rest of the unit were just putting pucks on net, and it was far more efficient when Matthews wasn't there. I'd love to see them splitting up the units differently to try and replicate more what it was like when Matthews was out injured, because the power play was much stronger when Matthews wasn't there, because the players weren't constantly looking for him to pass the puck to, they were actually shooting it themselves. So this is definitely something that there seems to be some solutions to, but I really hope they get it clicking, because it is a problem. I would say the power play is a problem that's been going on this season, last postseason, last regular season, for as long as I can remember. The power play has been an issue and it continues to be. Of course, the next area which there's been, I guess, some discussion over is of course the fact that this is the first season with Berube being coach of the Leafs. When it was announced that Keefe would no longer be coach, I think there was definitely a lot of excitement, from me included, about Craig Berube's arrival. He brings a very different attitude to the way that he responds to players. He was always bound to shake things up. He's a no-nonsense guy. He knows what he likes from players and he knows what he likes to see on the ice, and if he doesn't like it, you're cut. And while this attitude definitely seems to have pushed the Leafs into some early season success, I do have concerns about some of the ways that the Leafs have been playing lately. Especially, I have an issue with the fact that they are very low scoring in games. They don't really have like blowout wins. They don't win by considerable margins most of the time. The majority of the time, off the top of my head anyway, that I can think of, I feel like they've been winning like 3-2 or 3-1. It's only ever like 1 or 2 goals in it, and there's been very few games where there's been a larger margins of goals in their win, even against teams that really they should be winning by a bigger margin over. The Leafs are actually right in the middle of the pack when it comes to looking at the stat for goals for per game. They're at 3.02 right now. They're just right in the middle, which isn't bad per se, but they're actually on a par with Buffalo right now, which that's not really where you want to be. You want to be right at the top, you want to be a contender, and to do that I think you need to be scoring more. I think they have the potential to run into problems in the postseason if they are scoring so low. Games are usually so much lower scoring overall in the postseason that if you are so low scoring in the regular season, are you going to struggle to score at all in the postseason? I guess is my problem. I'd like to see more pucks on net. The Leafs are getting outshot a lot of the time, and I'd like to see that change a little bit. However, back to Craig Berube, I do like his changes overall. I do think that there was definitely a change needed in terms of coaching, and I don't see him as a particular problem for the team right now. I think a lot of the problems are more down to the players themselves, and especially some players more than others. Unfortunately, there's parts of the season where you're always going to struggle a little bit more. This just seems to be a little bit of a slump for the Leafs these past games, because even though they're on a 3-game losing streak, some of the games they won before then, it's easy to argue that they didn't deserve those wins either. The game against Philly in particular sticks in my mind as a game that was just a complete grinder, and they didn't really deserve the win in that game. I think they were quite lucky to get the points out of that one. I think there's definitely been a lot of discussion about the core and the performance of the core. Of course, the highest expectations land on the core group, as it should be. They are the highest paid, they are the stars of the team, they are the ones who should always be all in every single game. Of course, Austin Matthews has been out for a significant amount of time this season with an injury, but I feel like since he's been back kind of the second time around, he seems more back to his normal self for most games. He's been scoring, he's been, you know, having some good chances. He looks much more comfortable again on the ice, which is nice to see. Of course, there's been a game here or there where he's been kind of invisible, as of some of the other core, and that's not great to see because he should really be present all games. But he's definitely been a lot better. I feel like maybe the injury is finally sorted more, and yeah, he's definitely looking a lot better than he was earlier in the season when he was playing, and of course it's great to have him back. William Nylander, he's been unnoticeable for me in some of the more recent games than I would like there to be. He still leads the team in goals with 24 total for the season, but in a few of the recent games he hasn't had the same presence. Like, I feel like I've been kind of not noticing him as much, which I would expect far better from Nylander. I love Nylander. I love all the Leafs players obviously, but it's just more so recently since they've been in the slump, I do feel like Nylander has been less noticeable than he was earlier in the season, where there were some games he was by far the best player and he was the most consistent player for a while as well. I would say that title now of most consistent would definitely go to Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner has been really good in most of the recent games. He's been him and John Tavares, to me, have been the most consistent recently, and I think that's really good to see. Mitch Marner's biggest mess ups lately have definitely been silly post-game quotes, but that's nothing to do with his on-ice performance, of course. I feel like he's mostly showed up in recent games. I feel like he's improved as the season's gone on, whereas Nylander, to me, hasn't been as strong of a presence as of late. And John Tavares, if you watch my videos, you know how much I love John Tavares. I am a John Tavares defender. I will defend that man to the death. I absolutely love him, and I think he's been having a standout season. I think he's really proving his worth on the team, and if the Leafs don't make sure he is re-signed, I will riot. And then we have Morgan Rielly, which Morgan Rielly unfortunately has probably been my biggest disappointment of a player, and I hate to say that because I adore Morgan Rielly. I love him as a person, I love him as a player. He is the longest standing Toronto Maple Leaf right now, of course. I absolutely adore the guy, but something has to change with him because he definitely doesn't look the same as he has in previous seasons, and I find that a little bit concerning. Morgan Rielly was like the best defender for a while, and that is definitely not the case at the moment. So the team overall, I would say that the most recent problems have just been that the team just looks a little tired, and I can understand that to a degree because the schedule has been so tough this season. They have had a lot of back-to-backs, and the majority of the time they have been sort of the tired team versus a rested team, which is always something that's hard to overcome. I also think there's obviously been a lot of discussion online anyway about the fact that the Leafs look like there's something wrong, which is what prompted me to make this video, because there are definitely things that are wrong. But part of me thinks that maybe we've just been spoiled with really good hockey up until now, and now that they're not playing as well, it feels like the end of the world. Whereas if you kind of look at it overall, as long as they do start to pick it up again, this isolated slump won't be important. If this slump does continue on, of course, then there are problems and there are concerns and things will need changed. There will of course need to be some changes. I do expect there to be, you know, trades and stuff upcoming, which I'm a trade nerd, so I'm very excited for that. But maybe they're just a normal playoff team. Maybe they don't need to be the absolute best in the regular season. People always say that it doesn't matter how good they are, that they, you know, talk to me in the postseason about the Leafs, but when it comes to them being in a slump, everyone acts like the world is imploding. And I definitely, after the Vancouver game in particular, I was unhappy. I feel like Matthews, Nylander, stuff like that had been completely invisible that game. I felt like there was no effort and there was no excuse for the terrible game they played, and I was angry and upset, very much so. But if they get out of this slump, I think they still are great contenders to go on a deep run this year. I still think this team has it in them. I'm just not too sure where that kind of sparkle they had before has gone lately, because it definitely doesn't feel the same as it did before, but I think it definitely has the potential to come back. I'm not too sure about some of the line decisions recently. Putting Steven Lorentz on the top line, love that guy, but what were we doing there? Changed it back halfway through the game because, well, like, why was he on the top line? But overall, I don't think that there's anything too concerning about the Leafs at this very moment. They are still clinging on to top spot in the division as I film this, only by 1 point, and they have dropped down to, I think they're 8th currently in the entire league, which is still decent, it's still good. And as long as they can pick up the pace again, I'm perfectly happy with them. Of course, if the slump continues, I'll probably feel like going on a rant. That's how I feel about the team right now. There's definitely room for improvement, and I want to see them making those improvements pretty quick. Otherwise, I do think we have a problem on our hands, but as of right now, I think it's just maybe a slump, and I think they definitely have it in them to get better again. So those are my thoughts about the Leafs. Sort of at like the middle mark of the season. We're like just over halfway through the regular season at this point, so this is how I feel about the Leafs at this point. I feel like they had a really strong start to the season. Lately they have been in more of a slump, and even the games they have won, some of them they haven't deserved. And of course they're on a losing streak, which hasn't been normal for this team this season. So those are my thoughts on the good and the bad and everything in between about the Toronto Maple Leafs currently. Leave a comment down below. What do you think of the Leafs so far this season? What do you think they need to change? What do you think the biggest problem areas are? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with more hockey commentary and content soon. Bye guys.